Adding imagery to wood has long been considered the purview of only the highly skilled wood craftsperson. Fortunately for us, however, times change, tools change, and techniques change. Hello, my name is Curtis, and I am building a company that is all about helping you, or anybody for that matter, create heirloom quality imagery and items from exotic woods. Okay, maybe not just anybody, but anybody that can handle one of these machines right here, a plunge router. Now it's not just a plunge router, it's a plunge router equipped with one of these bad boys right here. Now don't be put off by its diminutive size. This here is a precision engineered tool that converts your plunge router into a handheld CNC machine. This kit, and it's nothing more than a bushing and a bearing, his whole goal in life is to position your router bit on one side or the other of a cut line. When the bushing is on, as it is right now, the router bit is positioned on the inside portion of a cut line, so you use it to remove all of the material out to the cut line. When you take the bushing off, the router bit is now positioned on the outside portion of the cut line, and that is how you create your inlays. Because you use the exact same pattern, template if you will, to cut out both the inlay and the void, the inlay fits perfectly into the void. And that's all router-based inlays is. And that's where EZInlays comes into play. What we do is we create a whole bunch of patterns allowing you to build all sorts of imagery in wood quickly, safely, easily, repetitively. First thing you need to do is prepare your inlay materials. And all you really have to do is put double-sided tape on the back side of the inlay material, peel off the vinyl, and then stick it to the backing material. Now it's important that we have the backing material because when we're cutting through the inlays, we're going to scar up whatever's underneath, and we would rather scar up something like this on our workbench. The double-sided tape has already been applied to my inlay material, so now I'm going to peel the vinyl backing off of the tape, flip it over, and stick it to my backing material. Okay, now that our inlay materials are prepared, it's time to create the alignment marks. To do that, all we're going to do is take our coaster's template, place it on the base material, going to draw out the circle, and then we're going to notch where the 4 alignment marks go. After that, we will go to the edge of the template and we will just extend those lines like so. Okay, I'm positioning my coaster where I want it. Right about there looks good. Making my notches. And now I'm extending them. Okay, now that I have my alignment marks in place, I'm going to take the layer or the L1 pattern from my Cupcake template and position it on the base material. I'm going to also draw out its shape, plus I'm going to outline the shape of the template itself. The reason I do this is so I know where I can start placing double-sided tape to affix this template into place. If there's tape in the middle here of the void, it's going to gum up my router bit, and I don't want that either. So I will put the tape around these lines. I always like to take a screwdriver and push the tape down onto the inlay material just to make sure it stays stuck. And also, if you are making many inlays and you're using double-sided tape, find something like this that has a sharp point on the end, because if you want to just use your fingernails, you can. One time mine cracked and split halfway down and it just hurts, so something like this is great. And now I'm just going to align up my template and press it into place. Now that the template has been affixed to the inlay material, we need to set up the plunge router to cut a void. Because we're cutting a void, we put the bushing on the bearing like so, and then plunge the router to its fullest depth. Then I like to put a template up on the router base and a piece of material that is the same thickness as the inlay material that's going to be put into our coaster here. When the plunge, if you can barely fill the router, that tells you that the depth of cut is going to be about the same thickness as the inlay material, and that's where we're at right now. So now that it's ready to go, I'm going to clamp my inlay assembly here to my workbench because nothing moves during the cutting process other than the router. And as you can tell, everything is secured into place. It's time to start routing. I'm going to route out the void in 2 passes. The first pass is going to be to remove the majority of the material. Then I'm going to vacuum out all of the debris. Then I'm going to take a second pass, and on the second pass I'm going to keep my bearing in constant contact with the template wall, so that way I get a nice sharp edge for my inlay to fit into. Okay, the first cut has been made, so now I'm ready to do the second pass. And on the second pass, I'm going to keep the bearing in constant contact with the template wall as I make my entire pass, so I get very sharp edges for my inlay to fit into. After that, then I'll go back and forth and remove these little knobbies. Now that the void's cut, we have to take the template off. I always like to use a paint scraper to remove the template, and just work the paint scraper back and forth a little bit, and you can pry up a little. These things are somewhat pliable, but you can snap them, so be careful. Our void's cut, so now we have to prepare for the inlay. Because we cut out this shape, using this shape, we have to use this shape to cut out our inlay as well. For this particular build, I decided to use canary wood. So, I am going to position my template on the canary wood. I'm going to choose the orientation too. I don't think I like that as much as I do this for the cupcake, so I'm going to position my template where I like it. And I think I like it this way. And once again, I'm going to draw out the shape. I'm also going to put the template outline on here so I know where to place my double-sided tape. We're getting ready to cut an inlay, so we need to set up our plunge router. The first thing we'll do is take the bushing off, and now we have to set the depth of plunge so it cuts all the way through the inlay material. Once again, we'll put a template up on top, and this piece of material here is the same thickness as our inlay material. We can barely feel the router bit, so we know we have to increase the depth of plunge. So we'll set our depth of plunge and check. And I can just still barely feel it, so I'm going to adjust a little bit further down. And now I can definitely feel my router bit, so I know I will cut all the way through my inlay material. Okay, now I need to clamp the assembly to my workbench. To cut the inlay, I'm going to position the router on the inside portion of this shape. Then I'm going to slide the bushing all the way over to one side. Then I'm going to turn the plunge router on and plunge it to its lowest position. Then I will trace the pattern out, keeping the bushing in constant contact with the template wall. After I make one complete pass, I'll turn the router off and unplunge it. The reason I vacuum out the debris when cutting an inlay is to make sure I've cut all the way through the inlay material. Because if I have not cut all the way through, I can just readjust the depth of plunge and make another pass. But once the template's off, that option is gone. In this case, I have cut all the way through, so I can remove my template now. And now I'm going to take out my inlay piece too. Now I want to pry from the sides. I want to pry from the side this way because the grain direction's going that way. If I pry from this way and I lift up, there's a chance I will snap my piece in half. Don't forget this is a real small, thin piece of wood and it is somewhat fragile. Okay, and there we go. After you take the tape off of the back of your inlay piece, you may have to do some sanding on the sides to remove some of these burrs. If you do, make sure you sand a slight bevel or a slight angle like this on it so you don't ruin the top portion. After you got the tape off though, do a quick pre-fit. Don't push too far down because if you push it into place, it's going to be drag getting it out. In this case, it looks like it's going to fit very well, so I'm going to glue it into place. Layer 1 has now been completed, so it's time to build layer 2. And to do layer 2, we're going to follow the exact same procedures. I'm going to position the template on my inlay material. I'm going to draw out the shapes, then I'm going to place the double-sided tape down, I'm going to affix the template, I'm going to route out the void. After that, I'm going to take the exact same shape, I'm going to position it on my inlay material, I'm going to cut out this shape as an inlay, and then I'm going to inlay this piece of wood into this piece of wood, just like we got done doing a second ago. Our coaster has been cut out, so next thing to do is to fill in these little gaps. And the way we'll fill in these gaps is we'll take some glue and we'll smear it into the cracks right there, and then we'll take our RO sander and run it over the top of it. The sanding process will mix the sawdust in with the glue, and these gaps will just totally disappear. Okay, all my sanding has been done, so the next thing for me to do is apply tung oil to it. I'm going to use this Formsby tung oil. I've used it for a while. I'm a big fan of tung oil. I'm going to probably put on one coat today. I'm going to let it dry for 8 hours, put on another coat tomorrow, and then a third coat tomorrow night. Then I'm going to let it dry for 2 or 3 days, and then I'll put a polyurethane coating on it. But first things first, here goes the tung oil.